We have to. Your reliance on technology is really.
Good evening. I am going to go ahead and call the meeting to order because I know we have a very large agenda tonight and I wanted every minute to work on it. So, Haley, can we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Chair Joan Jones.
Here.
Vice Chair Jan Zabriskie.
Here.
Committee members Jan Holland.
Here.
Alicia Barr.
Sorry, here.
Travis Cribble. Tim Rupert.
Here.
Corey Caldwell.
Here.
Jessica Penman.
Here.
Steph Olivieri.
Here.
Pam Hobday.
Here.
Ryan Wright.
Here.
Richard Palante.
Here.
Jeffrey Manasco.
Here.
Alexis Aller. Absent. Lisa Wallace.
Here.
Javier Diaz. Rolf Godon.
Here.
Mayor Lindsay Roman.
Council member.
Oh, sorry.
Here.
Apologies. In our hearts.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to open for public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the committee on items not on tonight's agenda. Please state your name for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. And under state law, the committee cannot take action on an item not on the agenda. The committee may choose to acknowledge the comment or, where appropriate, briefly answer a question, refer the matter to staff, or set the item for discussion at a future meeting. Does any member of the public wish to make a comment? Seeing none, I will close public comment and we will move to consent items. We have the minutes of May 7th, 2024. Would any member like to pull an item off for consent? Staff? Public? I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. Thank you. Moving right along. Jen, staff updates.
Yeah, just a couple of updates. We're going to talk about our engagement opportunities, but thanks to everybody that came out and helped staff those and bring folks along. So we got some additional feedback and communication on the last few engagement updates we did. A lot of involvement at Truckee Day, and then we had a business property owner event last night that had about 30 people attend. So we got some good feedback to share. We do want to touch base and just get some clarification. We've heard the interest in having a second kind of go around at what industrial is exactly and what that is along the river. We were thinking of trying to do a separate meeting, and that wouldn't be a Brown meeting, but anybody that wanted to come and have that conversation, the newer members that hadn't heard that. But just want to get clarification, is that really a repeat of what we did at the very beginning, or is it something different, so we know that we're hitting the right note with that? And if you don't have to answer me today, you can email me, or if you want to talk about it now. Okay, Steph.
I just think we're going to be working with it a lot, and I think that we should know, again, the development code, where the development code stands on definitions and allowed uses in certain zoning of industrial.
Okay,
I'm not sure it takes a whole
right, like,
meeting for that, but it could be an item in our next meeting.
kind of sounds like maybe you want like a reference guide that's a little quick and.
Yeah, something that we could turn to.
Okay,
Because property's going to be coming up, we're going to be talking about them. We're already looking at them tonight. What are they zoned?
okay,
Possibly it could be for all the zoning as it exists today.
okay.
Maybe a map, just a superimposing map.
I like that
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
And then maybe a good place to start is that we have a map and the zoning and then the definition of those. So what they are.
Yep.
And then any gray area that is part of the master
So,
plan.
and then we'll need a definition of allowed uses in that specific zoning, whatever the zoning is that's on the map.
Yeah.
Okay. We will work towards
Ron?
that.
I have a question related to that. I mean, one, I agree that I don't think we need a separate meeting. I think just a resource that we can look at our own time. I think most of us are doing our homework, so that would be helpful. The question I have, and I guess the clarification that could be included in that document or documents would be the general plan has identified, at least for a good chunk of West River Street, or at least in our study area, the riverfront mixed use zoning, and so having specific language on what that means and what area is affected. And you know, I'm curious, I know that the development code hasn't changed yet, but you know, any editorial around that would be helpful.
One more thing to add, so in talking with some community people, I think there's confusion in who has the full authority and responsibility to make zoning decisions and changes. Is that the planning commission or is it the town council? What are the guidelines? Are there state guidelines or can it just be done on a whim?
Kind of process and
Yes.
authority, okay. I don't think I've heard that one, so that's good to add to the list. Hi Travis, welcome.
Thank you, welcome.
Okay, we can work on a resource guide for you all on that. And then we can add to it or change it up if it's not quite what you're looking for. And then my only other update is more of a comment. Javier's not here tonight, so this would be his third meeting he wasn't present for, so we will work with the two council members on that process per the code of conduct, then we start looking for another member. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Discussion items, Hillary, I think, business and property owner inventory update.
Yes, just a quick update on that. Before our last meeting, I sent out to everybody a Google Doc where we're still working on filling in contact information for business owners. We've gotten a few updates from the committee, so thank you to those of you who have gone in there and made some additions. We do still have a number of gaps, so if you have not done that yet, I encourage you to take the time to do that. We want to have as complete inventory of contacts as possible so we can make sure that everybody is getting information as we continue with this process. Thanks.
Thank you. And I will open public comment on the two, the update and the discussion items. Seeing none, I'll close public comment on that and move on to the action team chairs. Lisa Wallace, would you like to give us an update on River Health and Access Action Team?
Yeah, thank you, Joan. Just a reminder, the people from the steering committee who are on the River Health and Access Action Team are myself, Jan Holland, and Alexis Olar. And then our members at large are Richard Anderson, Morgan Hargrave, Jake Hudson, and Maggie Cummings. And Maggie Cummings is also the vice chair of the action team. We met last month and we covered in more detail the River Health Baseline Report that had been presented to all of us, I think, I forget now if it was 2 or 3 months ago. Catherine Schnurrenberger came and presented that to us. So we reviewed that plan in more detail at the last action team meeting. And at our upcoming meeting, the team members will bring forward our initial comments, our thoughts, places where we think there are gaps in the information. That's going to happen at our June action team meeting. And then I'm hoping that at our July action team meeting, we'll start to be moving on to the recreation and access and restoration opportunities.
Great. Thank you. And Jeff, would you like to give an update on the Community Economic Vitality Action Team?
Sure. We met on May 20th. It's the third Tuesday of the month. That's when we're meeting. We discussed 4 items. The first was a high-level overview of what it would look like to move the road in West River Street, just conceptually to frame it. Is it feasible? Is it not feasible? What would the impacts be? So we discussed that. There's some slides in tonight's presentation that the town staff worked on to provide some of that overview. We also to piggyback on what Hillary mentioned for business categorization and engagement. There's also some slides on that tonight as well with the consultant. Then we also did an overview of previous plans between the 2005 plan and the 2040 general plan, and what we're doing here and where that convergence, and again, there's slides on that tonight's presentation. And starting to run out of time, but we did a quick overview of the community engagement to date. There's also an update on that tonight.
Great.
Is there anything I missed from Dan Marion?
I don't think so.
I think the one thing I would add is, so some of the input, one of the reasons that Community Economic Vitality Action Team, one of their pieces is to give feedback on BAE, on their financial analysis, and think about who those stakeholder interviews are going to be able to dive into that analysis. So on screen and in the slides that you were provided is the summary of the little bit of revision in terms of those interviews. So prior, as part of the scope, BAE had 5 different stakeholder types, thinking about different types of property owners, different types of business owners, based on the different types of properties or businesses they owned, in order to be able to aggregate those, and then provide some, feedback on what it might look like to think about, either, reinvesting in properties, or if someone did want to relocate, what that might look like as well, and some of the financial implications. So what the revision is seen on screen is that instead of grouping those different stakeholders into groupings, it's one group of stakeholders ask similar questions about interest or openness to upgrades, enhancements or development, the types of actions or activities they would be interested in, what the barriers could be, how the town could help, and if they are interested in relocating, what those spatial needs might be, if there's any specific access or utility needs, and those types of things. So it's instead of having these different groupings of stakeholders, we're looking at interviews in general, and I think that is also just a reminder, we do anticipate interviewing all of you as well in the next few months, both for the financial analysis to plug in and some of the barriers pieces, but also just to help move us along as part of the conversations as this steering committee, thinking about some of those visioning pieces and then barriers as well, and pieces to change.
Questions for either action team from this group?
I just want to say I really like that new grouping concept. It seems much more natural as far as getting good information and good direction.
So this action team is contacting businesses and property owners, is that what I just heard?
The action team is reviewing the list of business owners and property owners.
Where's the list?
And then helping, that's.
It's the list, Travis, that we talked about, the last meeting, the Google one. I think, Krista, did you connect with Travis on that list?
I'll bring you the printed version and we can go over it.
Yeah. Great.
So identifying who the contacts would be to be able to make introductions where possible for Aaron to be able to start connecting with folks on that list, who the best contacts would be.
I will open for public comment on the action teams. Any member of the public have a comment? Thank you.
Hey! I didn't see you sneaking back to the environment, to Lisa Wallace's group. I wanted to say this earlier, but I was late. Could I throw in the one, did you know this organization, One Truckee River?
I do know them, yes.
If that would be relevant and sort of some sort of collaboration with the R2SC and One Truckee River, just in sort of moving forward, as it seems like they have probably a lot of.
Yeah. One Truckee River is based in Reno, and their focusing on, over a many year process, integrating the care and the recognition of the Truckee River from Tahoe Dam to Pyramid Lake. And Kristen, in a great coincidence, I'm having lunch with Iris, who is the executive director of that group, and so I'm happy to let her know about what's happening with the River Revitalization Steering Committee and the Health and Access Action Team, and see if she's interested in terms of participating in the public process, for sure.
Great. Thank you. Any other public comment? Thank you. Seeing none, I will close public comment. And we will move on to Stephanie.
All right, our first piece is the update on our community engagement. So we went over a few of these slides last meeting, some of the engagement activities that had occurred to date prior to our last R2SC meeting, the in-person events with several different taco talks, open houses at Lift Truckee, the Donner Creek Mobile Home Park, at the East Rivers Trailhead, along with a few coffee chats, and in general, being able to connect with about 100 people during those events. We also had a number of the folks from this group and town staff doing presentations, giving people updates, and helping direct to the online web platform for engagement opportunities. And then just Saturday and then yesterday, being able to have, taking the information that we had received at those previous workshops and on the online platform, developing a suite of themes that had sort of bubbled to the top of things that people had said are part of their vision for Truckee River or not part of their vision for the Truckee River corridor area, and being able to present those. So the table at Truckee Days, I think you guys engaged with probably over 100 people. Yesterday we had a pizza open house for property and business owners in the project area and had about 21 people that signed in, and then had a nice Q&A discussion afterwards. And then this sort of event we're anticipating being held also at the farmers market and potentially at Truckee Thursday as well. We're also still planning on the multi-board work session and then continual presentations with other groups. So some of the key takeaways. So overall, in terms of contributions or ideas that were shared on both those in-person events and then transferred to the website platform, we had almost 1,000 contributions, 930 contributions. We touched probably about, again, the 300-400 people that contributed those ideas. You can see here the suite of themes that had occurred, that we sort of distilled all of those ideas into, people talked about either sidewalks or bike lanes or bike paths, and that was connectivity or bike bridges, this walkable, bikeable idea. We also heard about low impact parks and recreation, but you can see there was definitely like a strength in numbers and consolidation in terms of people that thought about this idea about walkability and bikeability.
Just so everybody that has a printed version can follow along, I think Stephanie's going to page 11 in the slides. They're all there, it started from the very beginning.
Yes, thank you. So again, looking at sort of those grouping of ideas as part of the first piece of the input, those events that we had, the Truckee, the taco talks, those open houses, and then the coffee chats, those discussion points. Out of that, 21% of the different ideas that were shared really grouped into this idea of walkability, bikeability. 10% talked about parks and open spaces and gathering spaces for people to congregate in the corridor, and then 9% talked about access to the river.
I have a question. The percentages that you're giving are the percentage of how many people?
They're the percentage of the total responses. So we received, out of all the touch points that we had with people, the 200 plus different touch points that we had, we received about 1,000 ideas related to those touch points of ideas that people shared, and then we distilled those down into what percentage of responses those ideas grouped into. So, out of those 1,000, 21% touched on the walkability, bikeability piece.
I guess I'll rephrase the question. Overall, how many people responded? 25, 50, 100, 200, to come up with the percentages.
So those are the 200, 300 people that we had engage and give us ideas, generated X number of ideas in total.
Got it.
And this is the percentage of those total
Got it.
ideas. So 7% of the ideas related to, restaurants, shops, mixed-use businesses. 7% responded and talked about, improving river health, again, providing open space or view to the river. 6% talked about Whitewater Park. 4% talked about housing. Another 4% were related to either removing or restoring the buildings, or talked about cleaning up what was described as junk along the corridor. 3% talked about cleaning up trash or dog waste or providing trash receptacles. It's interesting that 3% also was restrooms, just providing restroom access. And I think some of that was because we intercepted people on the legacy bike path. So because we're at a trailhead, that's top of mind, some of those facilities that would support use on a bike path.
Is that restrooms for the dogs?
Maybe so.
Kill two birds with one stone on that one.
3% for interpretive signage or education about the river and wayfinding. 2% about providing parking. There were also a few comments about not providing parking as well, so there was a counterpoint to that. There was also a counterpoint, I should say, to the Whitewater Park as well, but it wasn't, it didn't increase over 1% as part of the overall responses. 4% about being welcoming or accessible all year round, and then 1% for no more industrial development, but still taking care of the existing businesses, and then 1% about honoring the historic feel, but make it feel nicer for providing updates. So within each of these broad topics, so we have these 15 different categories. There were some subsets again that make up those categories. So you see here in the pie charts in your packet, starting with those components that made up walkability, bikeability. So within that 21% of ideas contributed, sidewalks, the idea of like having sidewalks and making it more walkable was about 21% of the making it walkable, bikeable. So there's these subset pieces within the overall ideas provided. And so I'm not going to go into those in detail, but just wanted to show that there's this sort of breakdown as well between those overall topics. For low impact,
I'm sorry, with this data though, when we think about the 938 contributions, that means people actually could have weighed in more than one time on different
Correct.
answers.
Correct.
So
Yes.
I think I want to support what Travis is saying. They're not 938 people who participated.
correct.
Just making
Correct.
sure.
Yes, absolutely. And that's if this is one touch point, we're
Right.
continuing to build on it, and we've built on
Yes.
it throughout the year. So as all projects are, it's trying to engage and make those connections and then continue the conversation with the community.
I would like to, conversely, it's not exactly clear when you say 21% said walkable, 21% of the ideas were walkable, bikeable. That may actually represent, or most likely represents, 75% of the responders or something like that, if that makes sense, right? Because, you don't have that data, but.
Yeah,
but
because it's hard to parse down,
Yeah.
to then drill down into how many ways.
But I think that this underestimates the percentage of the people that thought that was important. Does that make sense? Like,
Well, it could go both ways.
It could. There's not really a way to know it, but your
Yeah.
point's completely valid. There's not a way to know.
yeah, you can't.
But your point's valid because of the way the data was brought in that we have. So it's a good thing to remember, but it's a little hard to know.
Yeah, I think it's just one piece of it.
The additional engagement activity we did at Truckee Day and then again last night looks at that question as these are the themes we heard. Is this important to you? Is this not important to you? So I think we'll get to that.
And we'll continue to ask. So next, that breakdown of low impact recreation, parks, gathering spaces, the idea of parks was the bulk of the contributions there. Other, a small subset was about the gathering spaces and low impact recreation. For access to the river, there was about, almost half were about, just saying access to the river. Again, that could mean many things in people's minds. Trail or steps to the river were also specifically described as well, along with, access to the river specifically for rafting or kayaking, or providing, access to a beach area along the river. As a subset of the idea of, this restaurants, shopping, mixed-use businesses, again, you can see sort of the suite of breakdown there. And again, this is like a subset of the subset. So 50% of those comments and ideas were related to restaurants, and then, a split really between the other types of uses. The subset of river health, open space, the bulk of that really was about river health itself, with, again, some other additions to, open space, views, viewing platform. This category, again, if you took the comments about trash and pulled it into this, that would have bulked it up, right? There was 3% of all the comments that were about trash, and that could have also related to open space, river health, but we kept it a subset just because it was significant enough to call it out on its own as well, but just as an acknowledgement that that could also have been added to this as well. And then finally, that the idea of welcoming to all, again, that conjures up many different ideas. Really the ideas that have been shared, specifically talked about family friendliness or being able to be used year round as well. And then you had some ideas about dog friendly and then accessibility. So either, actual accessibility, talking about ADA, or really just said, be welcoming and accessible to all. So again, just looking how that reflects back on the ideas that have been shared by this group and prior, the ideas for river health and access that relate to ecosystem and low impact recreation types like fishing and then restoration. Again, there was this consistency with the ideas that were shared from the participants and the ideas that have been shared from this group as well. Similar ideas came up in terms of community vitality relating to housing, the walkability, signage and wayfinding, and then again, the vibe and character or the reimagined being about history and character, and then just the attractiveness in terms of thinking about the look and feel of the area. So as Hillary mentioned, we took those 15 sort of themes and then we repackaged them in a way, both for the event that was held at Truckee Days and then last night, and then also on the website as well, and said, so of these 15 ideas, which do you love it? Or are there any that you just say, no, I don't like it at all? And so people put little marbles or little rocks into different containers to express, do you love it or do you not like it within those 15 categories? And what has sort of come through from the 100+ people that were engaged during Truckee Days, and then the 20+ people that we talked to yesterday evening. Walkable and bikeable has, again, sort of come to the top. So we have the subset of like the bar graph or the pie chart here shows who said, I love it, and who says, I don't like it. Again, people didn't have to vote. If you sort of like, I don't really care one way or the other, then you might not put, I don't like it. But if you really loved it, put in a love it. So the walkable, bikeable, 8% of people responded to that category in general. And I would say, generally, most categories had about the same contribution of people actually responding one way or the other. If, on the high side, there was 8% of all responses, and on the low side, I think there was like a 5 or 4%. But 98% said yes, love it, 2% don't like it. Cleaning up trash and dog waste, again, 97% saying love it, 3% not liking it. Access to the river, 93% saying yes, 7% saying no. Being welcoming and accessible all year round, again, 93 and 7. And then River Health, open space, views, 90% saying love it, 10% saying don't love it or don't like it. Removing or restoring buildings, 87% saying love it, 13 saying don't like it. I would say here I did get feedback last night that some people felt like, oh, I would put yes, but I want them to be restored. I don't want them to be removed. So some nuance of like, I don't want to say one way or the other because I want to just say restore or say remove. Parks and gathering spaces, again, an 87-13 split. Honoring historic feel, but update, 84 saying love it, 16 don't like it. Restrooms at 78-22, interpretive signage at 76-24. The no more industrial development is going to take care of existing businesses. 76% saying love it, 24% saying don't like it. Similarly, water park at 72-28. Parking at 69-31. Having local restaurants, shops, mixed-use businesses at 59 and 41, and then housing at 55-45. So an interesting sort of trend towards different uses of a split piece, and then really strong support, again, for the walkable, bikeable piece.
Stephanie, I have just a clarifying question. When you've done this kind of further analysis of subset votes before, did you expect to see that range, 4% to 9% of all responses? To me, maybe I'm not understanding what's happening, but it seems really low.
Well, I think it's that everybody actually responded to everything. So that's how, that was my takeaway, because there wasn't a clear distinguishing between, oh, I'm gonna just only respond to this one thing. Because you could respond to all that you love, people are like, oh, I like that idea, and I like that idea, and I like this idea, and I like this idea. So there's really a sort of an almost even split of people responding to almost all the categories, except for the, these categories at the end, 5% and 6% is still on par with the others.
I think that's the next layer, Lisa, that we didn't do with this, is that you only get three choices. Like you get 3 greens and 3 reds, right? And have people, we didn't do that. And Hillary's pulling up, if we can take a break, the photos.
And just to be clear, I'm not I'm not advocating one or the other, I'm just trying to understand.
Hillary's is gonna pull up the photos so you can see how it was set up, but it was very much, you could vote for everything as a green if you wanted to. We weren't really asking people to limit.
Yeah, because it's not, right now, there's not a choice, right, between walkability and bikeability and having housing, right? You could have those, so there's not a point to say one or the other, it's what do you support.
I think, Lisa, what you're trying to say is not only, let's say you had 100 people, more than 8 people responded to that question, because that's how this reads, right?
Yeah,
that's
that's exactly
not
it.
actually true.
Yeah.
Right? Is that
correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's how this reads a little bit, and so hearing that, then that feels better. But because to me, this is only 8% of the people you talk to answered that question.
Yeah.
But that's not what's going on.
Yeah. So the bucket that had the most rocks in it or marbles was totaled 150. So 150 people voted in one bucket, but that's not in every bucket. So it's adding all of those rocks up, 9% was
How many children were putting rocks in the bucket?
More than 0.
I mean,
More
really?
than 0.
They're moving them.
Playing with them on the
I will say that the children that I observed, and I wasn't observing it the whole time, had parents that the children were putting them in, talking to the parents.
For the parents.
I just wanted to show a couple pictures to give you a flavor of what this activity looked like.
Cool. Great.
Other discussion?
Yeah, comments, group comments?
Yeah, is it an opportunity, I don't know if it would make sense, the Truckee Tahoe Family Festival air shows, the 22nd of June. And historically, we get 10 to 12,000 people throughout the day. 65-ish% are within the school district boundaries, similar to the airport district boundaries. The remaining 20% are out of Reno, and the extra 15% are tourists. But a lot of people all day long, so it might be an opportunity.
a great idea.
Yeah.
It's free,
That is a great scavenger hunt.
not this year.
I think it would be helpful for us to understand, so what we were trying to do was respond to what we heard at the last meeting where I'm not getting enough information to know what I wanna describe as the vision for the next round. So we were trying to drill down to some degree, still we're pretty high level, but is this helping you to be able to move towards that next phase or not? And if not, we probably should talk about that if we're gonna, because we still have the joint agency workshop we wanna do, we still have some other engagement opportunities that we can finesse.
I kind of understand what Travis is saying. It's kind of, it seems like it's not a lot of people putting a lot of information in to make these decisions. But I'm kind of on the viewpoint that the people that should be making these decisions mostly should be business or property owners, and then maybe some business owners. It's their property at stake, and if you look at just the way our country was founded, it was founded on a republic, not a democracy, and we've kind of used a democratic form of government and methods, and this is kind of a democratic form. But we have rules. That's what the town of Truckee is here for, to enforce codes that have already been established. And so if those codes are supposed to be changed, then that's a whole different form of changing it. So to me, it seems like what most benefits the property owner and maybe business owners, but that comes and goes, should be the most important, and most of this energy should focus, I would say, on that corridor, because honestly, a lot of people just don't even know what they want. They just want it to be pretty. I was talking to my neighbors. I live in Gateway, and I had just a little community, just my kids sent out flyers, put flyers on every door, and this was on Sunday, and we were talking about the grocery outlet and the Gateway renovation. And I talked to 3 or 4 people about the grocery outlet that's there now. And everybody in the neighborhood was against that. And I wasn't even living there at the time. No one wanted it. And it came in, and now it's established, and that's a private piece of property that's commercially zoned, that owner has the right to develop. And so I was for the grocery outlet. But the neighbors, we all have our own personal influences in whatever we're involved in, and they're not necessarily based on a republic. They're more of a democratic form of influence. It's what I think or what I want. But talking to all my neighbors, every single one of them is super glad that grocery outlet is there now. And they all said, we were mistaken, and we're happy that this is here, because we can just, send the kids to go grab some more eggs or milk. And we do it all the time. It's a half a block from my house, and it's just awesome to be able to walk to grocery outlet. And the traffic is not that bad through there. And the only thing that I kind of complain about, but it's kind of an advantage, is when they start plowing the parking lot, they plow before we plow. And so it wakes me up. Oh, I gotta plow tonight. But other than that, I think it should be the property owners down the West River. This whole corridor should be the ones that are really being focused upon to make these kind of decisions.
I agree 100%. I think that all of us that are here that don't own property, we have no right. The Pombos have a right. Edgar Stratton has a right. Alan Holland has a right. He owns the property. And for us to be making decisions, that last meeting we had with the map and all those pink dots on there, when I pulled up my map, that was all private property that we're making decisions on, where there's gonna be a park pavilion on private property. That map made me lose sleep for 3 days. We're making decisions for private property. I'm next to Danielle Nishimura, and I'm like, look, is this private property? And she said, yes, it is. I've been pissed off since then. And I don't know why we're making decisions for private property owners.
So
It turns my stomach.
I think there's some sense, for one, that map was written in 2005.
But
let me just, I'm gonna talk for just a minute?
Okay, I wasn't finished, but go ahead.
Oh, well, I'll let you finish.
Nope, go ahead. Because I probably
I
need
thought
to
you were
calm
done.
down.
Okay. There are parcels that are publicly owned currently, and it is the town of Truckee where we get to weigh in on what we want to, how we want to see this town developed in the future. That's part of being a citizen of our town. We all get the right to come to a public meeting and say what we like, what we want to see, and what we object to. And having sat on the side, the only time people show up, really, is when you affect their lives. That's really when people come out. And that's great, because you get their perspective. But you don't often get all the other citizens of town. I think part of this activity is to try and ask people who aren't directly involved, because they will come out and they will get their opinion. They will get to speak, mostly, is to find out what the other people in town like about their town and want, how they want it developed in the future. It may mean nothing in the end, but it may help us to shape what's on that map and what we want to say. This is what the citizens have said is important.
We do general plans, and in those general plans, we talk about what happens, what we envision, how we envision private property or the uses in the area. I think the thing that is important, Travis, and Tim, is that with this planning, no one is saying that your property is going to be changed under your ownership. And it isn't.
Excuse me?
The use, allowed use in the planning of it down the road may change. For instance, if you sold the property and someone wanted to change the use, you would have to comply with the new zoning. But your use can go on indefinitely. So in other words, no property owner's rights are being infringed on under their ownership.
Maybe I'm wrong. But I would like to hear if the Pombo property sold to somebody and they wanted to continue to use it as a yard with all their snow removal stuff, if they would be allowed to do that.
Well, we haven't decided whether.
We haven't decided, it's not our, they own the property.
No, I'm talking about the future.
But if you just said they sold it.
If they sold it,
Right.
would it be allowed for the new people to have their equipment there? I read 76% want everybody who works for a living gone off of West River Street and East River Street. That's the way I read that.
I don't think that's fair.
And it turns my stomach.
Yeah, but
That's what I read.
we haven't discussed legal non-conforming. We haven't gotten into that picture. Legal non-conforming, in my understanding of our town guidelines right now, say that you are legal non-conforming. That
Because-
property is legal non-conforming until someone wants to change the existing legal use. Do I have that right?
That's right.
So if Pombo sells his property and someone new comes in and they want to put a Safeway there, it has to conform with the new vision or zoning. If Pombo wants to sell it to someone who wants to continue what's happening there now, that's legal non-conforming, and my understanding is that goes on with the property.
But it's non-conforming because we continue to change the uses as a town on somebody's private property.
If they've sold it. We vision as a community that this can be changed to something else. But no one's forcing you to change your use or the person who buys it under that use.
And I agree with that. I think the process of rezoning is fine. I have nothing. My point on this whole thing is that the emphasis shouldn't necessarily be with those statistics. To me, it's worth considering because it is the public and what they're thinking, but the emphasis should be on what's best, honestly, for the property owners, like what, and there is gonna be, if the road
the road redirection goes right through my office. So that's gonna affect me.
I would charge a toll.
We got you to show
Well,
up.
honestly, I mean, I personally think it can be better for the property owners to have West River moved, and you have frontage property that goes all the way to the river that now is like way more valuable, you know, that's increasing
don't-
the value of the property, not decreasing it.
Yeah, we can't
So,
jump too
like,
far
I think
ahead.
that should just be, well, I'm just, you know what I mean,
I
is like, that should be the mindset, is like, how are we best benefiting the businesses? And I understand, Travis, I totally understand that. I wanna live on West River Street, I want my business to be there forever, but it's not gonna be there, it's going away. So how do I best work, you know, with what's happening so that, it not only benefits me, but also benefits the property owner, Hendrickson. I'm representing Hendrickson. He wants me here, you know? So, not that everything I say he agrees with, but in general, you know, I think.
Can I just add to, I agree with you 100%. And
Yeah.
so one of the biggest challenges, and we opened the meeting with this, is getting a hold of the property owners and the business owners and the consultant, Aaron, to do that outreach and the interviews. And maybe part of it is beyond just those questions, is to also get a sampling of kind of the visionary pieces. It's light and fluffy, along with the no kidding business acumen pieces of, you know, how your business operates, what makes you profitable here, what doesn't, what's your tax basis. But we haven't, that's been the hardest piece, and I'm not on that subcommittee, but is reaching those property owners and business owners.
Right.
And we even stood up a subcommittee just to find out who they are, because we don't even know, we know who the property owners are, we don't know who the business owners are. So there's been a lot of research, so I think it's gonna happen, and I think that input is critical. We just haven't gotten there yet, and I think that's the hardest piece, because this is just randomly whoever shows up that is demonstrating some interest.
And I think it's also important, this is just one piece. This is not
Yeah.
our guiding document that's like, all right, we're done. This is what we want to see. This is one small piece that still needs more iterations, more input. And then we need that list so we can work with, all right, this is what the community is saying. Hey, property owners, hey, business owners, how does this vibe with what you see for your property, what you want to do? This is a one-by-one case basis. It's not like a blanket spread. Ta-da, this is our answer.
That's
It's
why
just one
auxiliaries
piece to
asking
take
for
in with a
people
lot
to-
of other pieces.
To make
And-
those engagements, like, do you know the business owner, could you help facilitate that engagement, so it's just not the random town consultant, the
For me,
personalized.
the analysis, the breakdowns that you guys have done, you know, recognizing, right, it's a limited sample size, it's a limited response set, right, so recognizing that. But one of the things that it points out for me is a couple of places where, from the people who've responded and the way they've responded, where there's some gaps in what people are understanding what's happening, right? Of course, we know there's gaps, of course we do, because we can't reach everybody. But this also helps us know when we get to the set of recommendations, where are probably, we're gonna have to do some outreach and framing and describing for people about what it is we're talking about, because it does show some gaps.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
sure-
think that's, go ahead, Steph.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure we know what we're talking about. We don't even have a
We
plan.
don't, I know.
We don't have a plan.
So
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about that a little bit. I think what everybody's saying and what Travis and Tim are saying, we're closer than people think. At our last Economic Development Vitality Subcommittee meeting, we were asked to take the plot maps and the property owners that are on those plot maps, names, and to prioritize who should be talked to first. Okay? And we have done, I mean, I don't know how many of us did that, but I'm sure Hillary is putting this list together. And now what I was gonna have a little discussion with the committee about is I think we've talked enough. I don't think we need to go to the airport. I think it's time to act. We've been meeting almost, 10 months? And we have enough information, I believe. We have more information than the committee and council members had at Napa. And we moved and had that done in 3 years. Totally. Revitalization started in less than a year. And I think it's time that we put the vision together and we go to these property owners first and say, these are ideas, these are concepts, you know, and that means we need relocation opportunities. We need to get that done and just move on it. I really believe we're ready for that. We could be getting input for the next 2 years. Okay? And I think we can do it, and the most important thing that I think Travis and Tim are saying is it's really important for us to hear from the property owners, and then for us to look at what their wishes are and what they're excited about doing. How do they want to revitalize or not? Or are they interested in perhaps looking at relocation where it could benefit their business plan or not? But giving people that opportunity.
Yeah, I'll think blend a couple of the comments together, because it's gonna get even more in the next discussion topic that we have. But this idea of, what's enough for us to move forward with, to be able to put a pen to the paper so that we can align what are we talking about when we talk about walkability, bikeability, even at the basic, where are we thinking about sidewalk going from here to there? Where are we truly including a road realignment? What would that actually look like? So when we go to a property owner, we can be talking, apples to apples and understand, is this an alignment or is it not, so that way we can shift. So I think the question that Jen posed of, is this enough for now in terms of the community engagement that's been done, knowing that we'll still be, the air event is a great one. We still have the farmer's market of these 15 topics, still getting input on those in the next month, but feeling okay about the engagement feedback that we've gotten to date, knowing that it's not over. We're still going to be having the conversation. We'll hopefully build upon the conversation, especially one that we had yesterday evening with property owners and business owners in the project area, in specific.
I guess just to clarify, because I think I heard at least one expression that we didn't want to do the air show, that we've got enough. So I guess there's layers to that. Do we have enough and we're just moving on? Are we still wanting to do farmers market, Truckee Thursdays, and not the air show because we were planning those? Or do we want to save that? You only get people to get involved so many times, right? Like we can't be expecting people to get involved every week, every event, same questions. Do we take a pause? Do you feel like you have enough? And then when we get to the next engagement, when you have more of a vision, we've had more conversations, explore some of these other opportunities.
Tiffany, I hope you don't mind if I quote you. I was talking with Tiffany Hutton earlier today about this, and she had a really good point that the more people learn about what we're doing, the more their perspective is going to shift. Kind of what you were saying about grocery outlet, right? So the more people who understand what we're doing, and the more those people understand more, their points of view start to shift. So where you have events coming up, Truckee Thursdays, the air show, etc., I would advocate for continuing. I would advocate for continuing. Those
Could
are.
we do parallel tracks? I'm
sorry?
Lisa, go ahead.
Sorry?
No, go ahead. Could we do parallel tracks where we're beginning to talk to property owners at the same time?
Well, I'm one person. I'm totally comfortable with parallel tracks. I don't think it needs to be linear. I'm just really. I thought that Tiffany and Tim just both made a really good point that capturing people's evolving points of view will be helpful to us. And it doesn't mean it has to be linear. I agree.
I would like to ask, after reading all of the responses, the list of responses from so many people, my feeling is that we're, because we don't have a plan, we are asking people's concept, but I don't think they are grasping in the revitalization, that it revitalizes both sides of the road. The answers are mostly coming back about the river and access and river health. So that leads me to believe that we're not asking, I don't know what questions are being asked, but I don't know that we're asking the right questions about what this plan encompasses. And we're just going to get sort of the standard answers we're getting here, or concerns that we're getting here. We're not really.
Yeah, to your point, we don't have something that everybody is responding to the same way, right? and because we're only able to, at this point, talk about the concepts of broadly, we don't have something drawn that you could actually then respond to or
Right.
sort of align, this is exactly what we're talking
Right,
about.
and we can't really spend a lot of time talking about the alignment of realigning the road if we don't know what is going to go there. Because as Tim says, what would the road be taking out? How would it limit opportunity? So there's so many pieces that have to fit together here. And I've not been through this before, but I'm not sure what goes first. But I do think continuing the input from the public is very important, and possibly running a parallel track, as Pam has suggested, to keep us moving forward.
It seems to me that the broad strokes that are being covered in this current round are, and you know, they're the broad strokes, what kind of industrial or non-industrial and this and that. That in my memory, that, and I think I said it before even, that I'm seeing kind of the same trends coming out of this as came out of 2040 discussions, and that came out years before of the Truckee River Revitalization discussions, and that the broad vision of the river as accessible and all these things, and not huge buildups, and the broad strokes are very similar, and it seems that maybe what some of is being said is we need to get a little, it's time to, we've got the broad strokes, it's been the same for 15 years. Maybe it's time to narrow in, get more specific, and move forward in a more specific manner, like the road realignment. Like, what does that mean? To me, it looks like.
Can I ask just a question, going back to the survey for a minute? When the survey was taken, were these same photos being used? People were looking at the poster and they had the photos above them?
So the images were used in the rocks exercise, the green, red, love it, do not.
Okay.
The others were open-ended. So the others were what makes your vision, looking forward 5 years, what should we have achieved, or what would be in place that would reflect your vision? So it was broader to be able to open up the idea, not try and direct someone in a certain way.
So when I look at the red and green ball and look at the picture above, I can see why 76% of the people said, I don't like industrial, because they're looking at that picture. But then again, as Rolf indicates, what we're seeing is consistent with what we've been hearing for decades.
It says,
And in many respects, I think a lot of people, it's just from driving down the road and getting an impression from a broken down fence or Hendrickson's old building, that's the extent of the mental analysis that's going on. So I only give this so much weight. And in other examples, the Whitewater, I don't think 72% of the people in town have a whitewater raft. Yet 72% of them want a whitewater park. I think that's looking at the picture and imagining myself out there doing whitewater rafting and going, yeah, I love it. So I wouldn't put a whole lot of weight in this, and largely because it's, like Rolf says, consistent with what we've been hearing.
Wonderful. What I'm hearing out of Pam is put your foot on the gas pedal and relocate. That's what I just heard out of Pam.
She didn't say relocate. She said, let's move
Be sure
ahead.
not to
No.
put the
No,
words
I
in
heard.
there,
I did not say that.
She
What
said
did you-
find relocation opportunities if that's what people want to do. She didn't say
If
forced
that's
relocate.
what people want to do.
Yeah,
Okay,
Really important.
yeah.
what I heard,
Yeah.
is this recorded? Good. One question I have, we're talking about, okay, revitalization, revision, reimagine. Now we're back to relocate. It sounds like.
Let's just ask, Pam, would you like to clarify what your comment is?
Yeah, so whatever property owners want to do, stay, look at the opportunities in relocation or not, and I added or not,
Okay.
Travis.
Okay, well, I didn't hear that. I heard relocation and the curtains closed.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got it.
So.
But or
but-
not is really important, but
Wonderful.
the point is going to the property owners and finding out where they are with an idea
Okay.
that we need to put together.
And I think what Pam was saying, because she, with the receiver sites, is if we're gonna go offer that, because we've heard Tim say, I might be interested in relocating, that might work for me. We don't have anywhere to offer him at the
Well,
moment.
that was the second part to my question, and I've been trying to go, okay, so the relocation sites were potentially to a TTSA property? Is that what I was hearing? Somewhere over there? It's on the other side of the river, so,
But, yeah, and so I think that's when we connect with people, especially the work that Aaron's doing, of, you know, what would it look like? You know, what are some of the requirements, and is that a proximity to a certain area?
so
that
we're
way
driving a
it
cart
look
with no horses right now.
Well, we're asking the questions right now. That's, the only place we're at is to ask the questions.
I understand all that, but if we're trying to move forward with doing something, everybody's gonna dig their heels in.
We don't wanna
Like,
do the wrong thing.
Well,
It is
I
in
thi-
all
I
our
think we
best
should
interest
try-
to do the right thing.
I
And we
understand that,
need
but
to
if we have to
ask
prioritize
questions.
stuff, the first step would be to find a spot, and where is that?
I actually think that's not the first step. I think the first step is to look at the maps, which are coming up here, and say where do we think things could be, or where do you want a bike path? What pieces do we want to put in place? Because maybe we have very little that we are even open to change on. I don't think we know yet. I don't think we have any of that.
Yeah, so we have a couple of things, and I think everybody's talking about the right ideas, right? That we need to have a plan or some concepts that people can actually respond to, so we know generally what we're talking about, and then be able to have something that we can come to property owners with, and say, are you interested or not? If you're not, that's okay. This is off the table. If you are, well, what are the needs for, you know, making that happen? What would the relocation needs be, so that way we can see if there is a spot that actually works or not. So it's multiple, there's a lot of different parts to this, and I think our question is, do we feel comfortable enough that even though we don't have all the answers, that we will continue forward in the process of trying to develop the materials that we can have the conversations with?
So the other process of that, when you go to the now this is from the business side of it. I don't own a property, Edgar owns a property. But if the town collectively goes to him and says, oh, great, you know, you could put 30 units in here, sell it to a developer, this guy is out. So that's like putting
Well,
a stranglehold.
The thing is Edgar will never do that. You're not going anywhere.
I know that, but look, I'm not just here for me, I'm here for other people too.
I really want to move on to some discussion stuff, because I think it'll all come back around, so.
Yes, it will.
Good idea.
So, anyway, first, I'd like to open for public comment, and I know there was a couple, so, and the reason I don't call on you during the discussion of this group, I just want everybody to understand this, because we talk and then there's public comment. So that's when I will always do public comment though, so if I forget, so please. You had your hand up for a long time.
Yeah,
I
I know.
I'm sorry.
The format and how that works, but.
Do you want people at podium?
Yeah, because we can hear them better on the recording.
Oh, can you move to the podium?
And just turn the green light on.
And make sure the mic is on.
Green light. Yep. Okay.
There are people watching, so we have a great turnout tonight here, and there are others at home, so we're getting a broader.
Yeah, so I didn't understand the format, so I had my hand up for a while. But the irony of it is I was listening with my hand up to people talking about how difficult it is to reach business owners and property owners. I'm both a business owner and a property owner. There has been zero outreach to this point. I didn't know that these meetings were even occurring until Travis told me when I was getting some tires rotated about a month ago. And I've heard people say that, you know, it's difficult to contact business owners and property owners. Nothing could be further from the truth. You can go to the businesses, the physical businesses that are open, and leave a number. The property owners are listed on the Nevada County tax roll. It's a matter of public record. It's very easy to look up. There's not that many properties. So there really shouldn't be any kind of excuse for getting in touch with us. And my question pertains to this slide. When we see local restaurant shops and mixed-use businesses, what was the question asked, right? So we've got 4159, 41% of the people are not in support of more local businesses or not putting businesses in the newly developed West River. I think it needs some clarity just as far as what the question is that was asked there. And then my interests in that as well are there going to be newly created commercial properties down the way? And if so, what does that look like? How are those going to be allocated? You know, we specifically own the Tahoe Sports Hub and are curious whether there will be concessions for, you know, river rafting, you know, bike stuff down the street. If there are, will we be given the first opportunity to occupy that space as an already existing tenant on West River Street? So all of this to me seems very vague, and yeah, I think it could be presented in maybe a more informative way if we had the questions, the specifics of what the respondents were answering to.
Thank you. And
Thanks.
what was, do we have your name?
I need your
No.
name for the
Need
record.
your name for the
Brian Murphy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Hi, Carla Pombo, East River Street owner, property owner. Our picture was actually under the industrial site. I understand we're not all that pretty, but there is definitely a need for the industrial aspect in this town. And until we know where that relocation property might be and what it looks like, also is there going to be some assistance offered to us for relocation of our business? And I'm asking more for our tenant now than I am as a property owner. And our tenant offers snow removal services to the private sector in this town, and probably every single one of you benefit from that. And if they are forced to move off of East River Street, I'm not sure what's going to happen to the prices of snow removal in this town. The other thing is, underneath that picture with the little marble situation last night, I had more questions than answers. I had no way of knowing where I wanted to put my marble, even on my own property, because it was just way too vague for anybody that walked in for the first time, which was me last night. It's just a sticky situation to offer questions like that, and like Travis said, with children coming up and dropping marbles in there, they love that kind of stuff, you know? And I just felt like it was really sort of a funky way to put out anything that you're gonna gauge any sort of weight on as far as what you do with private property owners. But I do agree with a lot of the things that have been said here today, and I thank you all for the time you've put into this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. I think we have a couple of, or at least one thing to vote on, and that is whether we want to continue at this point doing the remainder of the public outreach pieces, and maybe with the addition of the air show, like I'm going to just call that part of the current plan, even though that was added tonight, or we want to put that on hold for a time. So I think we need to give direction to staff and to the consultants on what we want to do there. So, yeah.
Well, I think I can state the obvious that there's a finite resource, right? Staff time, consultant time. And I think that what I generally hear from the group is that it was important to get some public input before really nailing down a vision. But I've talked to actually most, if not all, of our sub-consultants on this project, and they're all looking to this committee to get clear, what's the vision? What are we creating, right? And I think that at this point, I'd love to see this group, staff, consultants, focus on creating something that we can throw darts at, and the public can throw darts at. So to me, yes, more public input, but let's get back to work so that now we can create something more concrete, because I'll be the first to agree with most people that, you know, I think it's useful to get people engaged in the process, but I'm not putting a lot of stock into these pie charts, you know.
Yes, Lindsay.
I agree with what Jan said, and just reflecting on what we just heard from business owners and property owners and our discussion before, it seems like we should be putting more emphasis on talking with the property and business owner folks, sharing what we heard. This is a one point in time data collection. This is not, we're moving forward with these, but get their response to what we have heard from the community so far, which will then help us inform development of a better vision. Because I think it is true, people could look at these in a bunch of different ways and it's unclear. And Stephanie, also what you said earlier about it, in reading through a lot of the responses, it seemed to me too, people were reflecting more on the river and not necessarily economic corridors and businesses. So having more for folks to respond back to seems to make sense when we go back out to the public. So I would recommend that, yeah, we move forward with talking to property and business owners, hold off on more public engagement like this until we have more to bring back to them.
Okay, so I think I will just call for a motion.
I'll motion what Lindsay just said.
I'll second.
Which was that we're gonna hold, I think we need to define what that motion was a little bit. What are we voting on? At this point, what I'm hearing is we're gonna hold off on ongoing surveying of the general public at community events. Is that,
Yes.
so, is that the motion?
I will-
And
I
that's
will
the
move.
second?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Oppose.
Okay. Do you have an alternative, if the motion carried, the motion passed, but do we have an alternative viewpoint that, is there another motion that anybody would like to make, or is there an idea that you want to float out there of what we should be doing?
Well, I think
Public
Lindsay had
outreach.
a second part to what I heard her saying, which is what I was saying, and that is, let's also move forward. I think we have 90 different property owners, maybe more, Hillary, however many, and we need to move forward with what we talked about with the interviews with the property owners.
Well, I think that is perfect for the economic vitality team, action team, to put together their plan and how you're gonna move forward. Tonight, I think we saw your outline of
Yeah.
questions.
And we have the people, and we have the person to interview.
I don't think the motion was speaking to stopping that. This was specific
okay,
about
okay.
surveying at like Truckee Thursdays or the
Okay,
farmers
I just think it's
Yeah.
really important we have these parallel tracks.
Yeah.
And we have the information to do that.
Yes.
With regards to the general public, I agree, I don't think we should be surveying and doing more like data collection, but I think outreach is still important, having a presence at all of these, telling people, hey, this is what we're talking about, come to the meetings, provide input, rather than like on the spot surveying. I think engagement is still really important to be involved, because that might also help us find missing gaps in our data set of property owners and business owners. Just by that additional outreach, we might find those people.
And the public comments I'm hearing just here tonight tell me we need to keep going with the public process. If these informed people still don't understand it as well as I expected, then there's a lot of people out there who misunderstand the process.
I agree.
We still have our
If Travis agrees,
communications
that's good enough for me.
sub, I don't remember the correct term. Maybe we need to team engage a new process with that. To take this piece off the table so we can move forward tonight and have us get together and talk that through.
Yeah, and Lisa, I wanted to know what did you want to continue the surveying, or are you in favor of engagement?
I couldn't quite track what you were saying, Jessica, sorry about that, but I did understand what Alicia was saying, and I think there's really a lot to that. And Jan, and what Jan was saying too, I am very comfortable if we stay at Truckee Thursdays, we go to the air show, etc., and we're not doing a formal data collection effort. I don't know how.
I think the compromise, and I don't want to interrupt you, but maybe what I'm hearing is we're not going to do the marble exercise anymore, but we can have the QR code. Here's the website. Did you know this was happening? Sign up for
Have
the
a big
emails.
map there that draws people attention to what the geographic area is.
I'd like to propose that we set ourselves some kind of time frame of maybe within 60 days that we come up with the first draft of a vision. That I think we've got enough data, maybe.
Well, I'd like to get, we can't even get to that point of the agenda yet, so that's my frustration is that, yes, I agree with you that we could, but I think there's a lot of discussion that has to happen, and I don't want to not have the discussion.
I was thinking that having something there would give the point of discussion.
I think
it's all kind of out in the ozone now, and people are saying they don't get it because it's so ethereal.
Yep,
But if we actually
Yes.
had something to shoot at.
I think we're trying to get to that in this agenda.
Yeah, even if it's imperfect the first round, then at least it would be something in black and white.
Yes. Good? Are we good? Everybody has direction they need?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. Okay, and Alicia has a graduate. This is a big week for her. Great. Thank you, guys. That was a good discussion. Stephanie, I'm gonna move on. So I don't want to look this.
Yeah, no,
We
I'm
talked about
I'm
our
sorry.
road alignment tonight, so.
You know what?
I don't want to have that the only thing we talk about tonight, because there's a whole corridor.
Yes. So the thing that we need direction from those groups in order to be able to move forward really is, as we're drawing, because we're going to start drawing things on a map, where our limitations and opportunities to draw are. And in particular, thinking about the private property areas, the different property areas, where we might be able to think, are there opportunity areas that we would like to convey a different idea that is brought forward to those different property owners? So if I fast forward to this map, this is the map that is in the presentation slide number 26.
Yeah, it's in your packet too, if you can't see
That
it.
identified opportunity areas previously about where there could envision change. So this is a starting point that we could discuss of, what areas we might envision change. So I want to table this because what we'd like to do is actually break you all up into two groups to be able to work, one with Kristen and one with me, to identify where there might be opportunities and then come back as a group to give us direction of, this is where we could imagine being able to draw different
I'm not comfortable doing that on this map until I know exactly where the private properties are at.
It's all private
It's all
property.
private property.
It's all private.
So I think that's
Sums
and
it up for me.
that's the conversation. If there's not comfort as drawing on private property, I think the piece is that we can draw something, but it doesn't mean that it's change. It's a conversation tool to be able to come to somebody to say, this is what we're talking about, just in concept, so that we can start talking apples to apples about what that change might look like for somebody. John, you got it?
Yeah, well, I'll just say that, like, looking at this slide, again, to clarify, I don't own this property in C, but I do manage the majority, or about half of that C zone with 1,300 feet of riverfront. And, you know, I guess as a property owner, I feel comfortable that we're having we're engaging the community and engaging the town on what's possible on that property or neighboring parcels. Let's be real. I mean, from the town of Truckee's border, at the bottom of A, you know, essentially all the way to Pombo's property at F, with one little exception of the current park that's being built, it's all private property. So if as a community we want to see, hey, it'd be great to have a little park, or hey, wouldn't it be great to have a pedestrian bridge that crosses over to the wild side, and to this legacy asset that we've created. We have to be talking about what might be possible on private property, because it's all private. And to me, that's essential. And honestly, to redevelop the property that we've invested into, we would love to see a pedestrian crossing to the other side, because, you know, it's dangerous to walk a mile and a half somewhere else. So I guess, you know, I counter this idea that we shouldn't be talking about private property. It's all private property. If we don't want anything to change, then just state that. That's fine. But many of us want things to change.
This is 2005's plan. This plan exists, and this is what's talked about on these private parcels. What we're saying is, do you want to change it, or do you want to keep it the same?
What do you mean by it?
By the plan, the vision. This is the vision. The current vision says, on parcel C, we're gonna have mixed-use commercial, hotel, live, work, public plaza, restaurant, residential.
Well, and I would rephrase that a little bit. Our question tonight is actually, because we'll get there of like bringing something forward that reflects the conversations that have been had, but we want to understand, where can we show the possibilities, just to make sure that we're all coming along at the same time. Like, are we all okay, or are enough of us okay, or is there another way to move forward to show the possibilities within this project area, within the zones that have been identified here? Or would we like to reshape some different zones of like, hey, these could be opportunity areas that we're then going to come forward to the property owners to say, here's some ideas, are you interested? And if so, let's then talk about, you know, what that could look like. Maybe it's a revitalization piece and it looks a little different, but it's the conversation tool that we can then come forward with. So we're looking for direction of, are these the areas that we can look at for possibilities?
But I'm going to further address, though, the concerns that Travis raises, and it goes to Joan's point that the maps we see here are what the council was wishing for after all this community input in 2005. They're aspirational. It's what we aspire to, and the council approved these maps as something we wish we had. And so look at us 20 years later. Do we as a community still want to aspire to these things? And what's changing is, well, we want to make it happen. That's a separate question. It's the one, Travis, you keep coming to. And we aren't too, how would we make that happen? It's only aspirational right now, and we need some kind of map, in part to go to a property owner and say, gee, do you want to, how can we help you improve your property or do what you want? What's it going to cost us? And the reason we're asking you is we want to change this into a mini golf course.
I'll go first.
Yeah, sure.
I'll go first. Okay, so, you know, recognizing, I've had conversations with with a bunch of us that the conversation we're starting to have tonight is some of the hardest conversations we're gonna have, right? This is hard. How are we gonna think about private property? How are we gonna think about approaching a property owner with a vision of which some property owners have been part of developing, but not every property owner has been part of developing. So it's super hard, and I just wanna give us all credit for staying at the table, nobody's stomping out. I think the titles of some of these sections are a little wonky for me, just putting that out there. But when I read the sub-bullets for each of the sections, right, their bullets, their general statements, I'm like, from a person whose day job and paycheck comes from the watershed and the river, when I look at this kind of list and I look at West River Street, I'm like, yeah, this is like, if this could happen, I think this could be okay. These kinds of uses could happen in a way that bring vitality to the river corridor and protect the Truckee River, that hopefully create business opportunities and make it an enjoyable, some of them, enjoyable places for the public to purchase, hang out, eat.
So if I understand you right, then Lisa, generally okay with us, to Joan's point, saying generally the uses and the description between these areas, and can we look at what the possibilities are in those areas with those types of uses?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super interested to hear what everybody else has to say, and I kind of reserve the right to change my mind, like maybe I'm gonna learn something new. But, yeah, when I generally vision what could happen on West River Street, it does look kind of like this.
Can I clarify something, and maybe if we use B as an example, that's listed as industrial and mixed use.
Yeah.
Is that still the vision? That one doesn't include residential.
Yep.
So like that, I think that's the level we're getting into.
Yeah.
Is that a place that you want to see residential or not, or you would hope to see it? I just want to make sure everybody understood what the ask
Yeah,
was.
and I would say in the subset, the next, on page 28 is an enlargement of that B. And there was actually some live work along an edge of Donner Creek that was identified. So that number 5 talks about a little bit of live work pieces and activating the streetscape. So it's like industrial closer to the railroad track, and then a live work more softer edge, open space edge along West River itself.
Who else wants to go?
I'll jump in here, since we're talking a little bit about this area. I think one of the exciting things about the revitalization of this entire area, the West River and East River area, is that it holds tremendous opportunity for this community and the property owners at this time. I believe that our number one need in this community is housing for our community. It's vitally important to the health of this community. And that much of this property has opportunity for multifamily and high-density housing. And because we want to work with everyone who has property and who has investment in this area, I think that a combination of housing and relocation of industrial and replacing it with housing and mixed use makes tremendous sense for this community if we have a location to move industry that is feasible, financially feasible, for our industry, which is one of the priorities of this community. We cannot grow without our industry. And so if we can work collaboratively together to relocate industry from B or any other areas where it could be replaced with a higher and better use, I think we should consider that. So we were talking about B and there's no housing there. Well, that's a beautiful area for housing. And I think we would be missing a tremendous opportunity not to think of it as such.
One, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Stephanie. I think, to add to points that Tim has brought up is that I think what's key is to zone these properties that are flexible enough that that there's a fair amount of discretion of the property owners on what actually gets done, because we may sit here thinking, well, yeah, housing, we want that housing, and I actually, the property I currently manage is zoned inflexibly housing, and we've had a difficult time developing it because there was a really definition that was hard to make commercially viable, right? So I think that I would agree, though, that here having a higher emphasis 20 years later, housing is more important, and I think should be emphasized in this area as an opportunity. But again, don't tie the property owner's hands so that they have to develop a certain density of housing.
If I could clarify my comment too, based on what Tim and Travis said. And I also explained this when we were talking, is this is a vision. No one's being forced to sell their property or to move. That's the number one thing. And hopefully, if for the better of the community, if we can work together and move pieces around with the blessing of the property owners who could stand to make, as Tim always says, quite a bit of money for a higher and better use, and relocate them. I think that's important, but no one should be forced to move. This is just a vision for the property as we move down the road. And it may come to fruition at some point, it may not. So that's.
So,
Wait, Carla, I'm gonna, explain. So the committee gets to just talk and talk and talk.
Oh, wait, Joan.
And, okay, thanks. Thank you. I just wanted.
So that's the, maybe that's the issue with it being a Brown Act committee, is we get to notice it and so everybody knows, but we have to follow the Brown Act procedures, so apologies for that. And I think, I just really want to underscore so that we're all on the same page. I'm hearing, Stephanie, from you, and I think Elisa, maybe a little bit from you, but not as much. If a property owner is willing to relocate, this particular section B, you view as being a great housing opportunity if there's a if we find a receiver site and if the property owner is interested, is what I heard you say.
Yes, but even if they're not interested, it could be part of the plan or zoning so that in the future it
Right.
could move in that direction.
The vision is there,
The
but the
vision.
actual, whatever may happen from that is if the property owner is interested and if we find a receiver site. Okay.
And just, so B runs from the mini storage units, I just want clarification, confirmation, that we're talking basically from the mini storage units to the confluence of Donna Creek.
It might include the propane storage next to it.
Oh, okay, you're probably right, it probably does. It probably does, propane storage.
Is most
Okay.
of that Hendrickson's?
No.
But a lot of it is.
I'm good with
Half of it.
half of it, probably.
How-
B1.
How are other committee members responding to B, C, E, H, and F?
B?
That's from everybody.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Sorry, I don't function well when it's hot.
I know.
I'm having a hard time today.
I was having the same
It's okay.
problem.
I think this all looks fine, but I don't know if we're still, it almost feels like, I know we got sent these today, but like a little more time, because I probably would have gone in and like made some real thoughtful choices about certain pieces of property, and I don't feel like I can do that right now, which is okay if we're just trying to be general, but it sounds like you're not trying to be general. And
Well,
so
I-
that makes it a little hard for me, but overall.
I think a general comment is just fine.
Okay.
Okay, so I think you can be as specific or as general as you want.
Okay.
At this point, it's our first stab at it.
And to be clear, we're just looking at B at the moment.
Well, we
Well, I mean,
started there.
Lisa made a comment on broadly.
Broadly,
For all.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Steph
there was
was
a
looking
dive
at,
into B, but to Pam's point, it'd be good just to do a quick around the room and sort of
Yeah.
just get the pulse.
yeah, of the whole thing, are you asking?
Are you all ready to do the whole thing, or would you like to go bubble by bubble? Maybe we
Bubble.
just do a bubble by bubble.
We have-
Let's do the thing.
Okay, Pam would like to do the whole thing?
Just conceptually,
Just
where people are,
conceptually.
big picture.
I'm similarly struggling as Jessica is, and looking at it piece by piece is harder for my brain too, to want to understand the whole corridor. So yeah.
And I also think knowing my role with the chamber, like I think I could come to this with some pretty specific things that our community is lacking and missing, and you know, look at this with that really critical eye if that's where we want to go. But I just have not had that opportunity. So overarchingly, yes, and more housing always, because we need whatever it is, 9,000 units in the you know, region to be able to maybe hit our housing needs. So that's kind of where
I'm struggling with the maps, and where they're at. We have technology and we have these plain little maps here, and I can't even find on the river where we're talking on B.
B's from Donner.
This is right here. This is where we're at. West River's right here.
I
This
see
is
that.
Donner Creek.
And page
And then this is-
28 will give you
This
an
is mini storage.
enlargement.
Okay.
that's what he's on.
And so part of the reason I want to go bubble by bubbles, I look at B and I see number 5 is live work edge along Donner Creek. But then I look at the framework map and it shows a trail along Donner Creek.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the trail going up to the campus, and I don't know if that's a conflict
Yeah,
or
I think
what's
for
going on.
tonight, we're
Okay.
putting a pause on like the elements, so the, you know, sidewalk, bike trail,
That,
plaza, putting a pause on that and
Okay.
thinking broadly about the areas. And then the opportunities, possibilities, what you might see as uses within those areas, not the connectivity parts.
Can we get a clarification on industrial?
Yeah, I said the same thing, industrial, or what, I think we need to, a definition for us, for a committee, and maybe then we need the true zoning definition, because when, I still think as a committee, we think industrial, we think corp yards, we think, equipment storage, you know, we think a lot of what we all probably just generally know to be industrial in our minds, but not what the zoning calls industrial. So I think.
And we heard pretty loud and clear you want some kind of reference guide for that, so we're
Yeah.
gonna get you that. But if you want a different definition,
So as of tonight, we're gonna call industrial, kind of those, industrial uses, corp yards, construction yards, equipment storage. We're gonna call those industrial uses for our purpose tonight of whether they're okay to stay or not.
What about parking? Because that's listed as new industrial.
How do you guys feel about parking? To me, that's not an industrial use.
Yeah,
I wouldn't call it an industrial use.
Well, I'm
I'd
just
call it-
reading from the map.
I know.
I want us to be clear.
I
on
appreciate that,
parking,
Pam.
because
I
it's
think,
gonna be a major issue.
I think we should take parking out of the
separate,
use.
its own topic.
Okay.
Because it is gonna be a big conversation.
Yes, it is
Yeah.
gonna be a big
Yeah,
conversation.
So for my input on B, I would say if we're defining industrial like that, like Carla said, it's very beneficial to have equipment in and near town. That's where the town of Truckee has it, in the central part of town, so they can plow streets in the middle of winter right from town. So and I almost kind of like the relocation of West River, where you could push some industrial up against railroad tracks where it's loud and noisy anyways, and then the river, I mean, Donner Creek is really pretty. Not necessarily Donner Park as much, but the creek right there is super pretty, and so is West River Street. So I think like just the lay of the land, if it was my opinion, like obviously housing and where people generally would gather would be nearer to the river, and then on the other side of a noisy street or near railroad tracks would be more of an industrial area if it allowed that.
I think that is generally the concept that's bubbled out here in B as well, where you have, where 5 is on the diagram, that's housing or
Yeah.
some mixed use. And then a buffered edge or an active street edge, again, it says 9 on Cliff Work. And then new industrial within that internal grid along the railroad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see who's ready to speak.
Richard?
Again, for us, it's just who might move out to be interested in moving our way, and then what does our board want to do, so.
Yeah, well, I just appreciate you being at the table. Well, Corey, we just skipped over you.
I definitely, I like along what Tim was saying of having that noise corridor be on the backside with the more industrial. And then, yes, a bit more of a commercial front or in residential along the river.
Travis?
Can you give me some clarification on biofilter?
Biofilter would be a green area that helps to infiltrate stormwater and runoff. So it essentially is like the cleanser before water hits Donner Creek. So
Okay.
it's like treating the runoff.
How much would be industrial?
I think that's something that we'll pull together as
Can't answer the questions. then.
Yeah.
How much do you want to be industrial?
Well, then again, that would be engagement with the property owner.
Just pie in the sky, say they.
All of it.
Okay, that's fine.
Change nothing. All of it. Leave it. That's what I say.
You want more time?
I'm good for now. I'm thinking about the other spots now. Move on to the next bubble.
I don't have a comment in terms of the overall use of the land. I'm obviously looking at it from a utility infrastructure and planning perspective, so I like the different creative thoughts, and I'll just leave it at that.
Ralph?
I was going a second, so I missed it.
I'll just emphasize that managing stormwater runoff, residential, particularly along Donner Creek, mixed use, some industrial. I mean, generally, this is a great plan as far as I can see. And I think moving West River Street a bit could be a good idea.
Yeah, big picture, I don't want to go bubble by bubble yet because there are things that we could really put in each of those bubbles. I agree with Jessica, especially having listened to all the community input. I'd like to go back and look at all of that and then play with these bubbles a little bit. But if we look at B, C, E, H, F and really evaluate what the key themes have been, I think those buckets under each of the alphabet descriptions, I'm not sure I like those descriptions either, Lisa, but we could play around with that. But the key is, I think that's broad enough that we could move forward. I really do, and I agree with what everybody else has really said about this.
Jeff?
3 thoughts. I think the A, B, C zones on the West River Street are pretty accurate. I think there are opportunities if you move the road. I know that I mentioned the idea. I think there's lots of options. I don't know what right or wrong looks like, but it changes the dynamic. And the third piece, just for context, is there are 9 parcels in Zone B. So it's not like there's ton, and I think half the landowners are somewhat in this room right now. So I don't think it's as cosmic an engagement to talk to the 9 property owners that constitute Zone B. I think we can very rapidly, as we've discussed, very rapidly get the business property owner perspective. It's 9 parcels looking at parcel map from the county. That's it.
The other thing that I wanted to add from our subcommittee with Jan and Jeff and myself, the committee really did spend a lot of time on discussion. And I really want to honor the time that we spent with
Yeah.
looking at options of moving the road, because it will give opportunities based on what the community has said they really want or don't want.
Right.
And so, we have to be, add those in and get, this group's thought, Joan, at some point.
Absolutely. It's going to become up, this is, I'm gonna go on a little soapbox here, as the chair. So this is the second month that this entire packet has been in your board agendas. And we have to be able to come to these meetings and talk through these ideas, because we only have 2 hours. And we're spending like an hour on updates, so that leaves an hour a meeting. And we have this much that we're not gonna touch on tonight. And that's fine, because I think we're getting good information. But I really want everybody to take the time when the agenda comes out to download the attachments, read through them, look at them. You can ask staff for additional information or questions, but to come to the meeting with looking through this and knowing what this information is, so that we can really make really good productive use of our time here. That's my soapbox.
Chair, are you gonna respond to the question?
Oh, thanks. So I probably feel, and I could be swayed as we all talk through things. I feel that B still works for industrial at some level, and that housing, if I'm gonna prioritize where housing is, I wouldn't choose B as my first choice. I would probably choose C as my first choice to have housing. And I would keep some industrial uses on B, would be my overarching.
Chair Jones, I
Yeah.
just want to get a clarification, because I did go through everything that was shared on the agenda, and downloaded all that. But most of what we're looking at here, if I might be mistaken, I maybe missed it, but I think it went out today.
No, it's in there, it's just.
It's in the packet.
It's linked.
Yeah,
It's
it's just
a
a
link.
link, yeah.
And if that's not working, I need to hear that, because we need to do it differently. Like if.
It's a link in the agenda. I know
Yeah, it's.
I think I just opened them all. Okay, I may be missing it.
I think what might be helpful, Chair Jones, is that whatever the expectations are for this committee, to be clearer in please read A, B, and C, and not have additional links. Just have it all there.
Can I ask if one PDF was put together that started with the agenda
Yeah.
page and had all the attachments all as one PDF? Would that be most helpful?
I think that's probably where we should go.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
I would love to have somebody point out where this is in the agenda, because I'm not finding
If
it.
you click on the previous plan summary, all this information's in there, but I think the disconnect is I wasn't clear what I needed to do with it.
I think that's on page 9, but I
Okay.
can see where
Yeah, maybe it's
separate
just-
from,
Yeah, and so I think maybe that's just the misstep.
Yanni, you clicking agenda or packet to the right? Packet has all the attachments, agenda just
We're losing the
shows-
meeting here.
Yeah, so we need to make improvements on how
Yep.
we're getting information and
Which
clarifying.
is really important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then just very clear directions. We want you to be able to discuss and give us recommendations on B, or on B, C, D, E, whatever it is. That would help.
And realize that we have to put it out a Thursday before. There's a little bit that goes into
I know, it's a
getting
lot.
these to come.
There was, I think it's just the organization where
Yeah.
it was in the packet.
Yeah.
So are we
Okay.
what are we doing next? Are we going through C bubble? Is that what's next? What's next?
What would you like? What's helpful?
We have 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I do have a comment on C.
Yeah, good. Let's do C.
Let's do C.
Lisa, or Lindsay, sorry.
I'll pop in. And first, I was just noticing too, in going back to B, it calls out sidewalk in 2, but then it doesn't have sidewalk for any of the rest of them, and it doesn't have sidewalk for a lot of the different numbers. And just going back to the walkable, bikeable, just again, not saying it wasn't including them, but, and not all of them are on the street, but that was just something that was sticking out based on the feedback. I think overall on B, kind of agree with everyone, it seems fairly good with where we're at. C has hotel, and I feel like that is a piece we didn't really get community feedback on, we haven't really talked about at all. I don't have a strong feeling if C is a good spot or not, but I think that's important that we see if that's, you know, if we still agree with that, because that would be a pretty big piece. So that would be my feedback on C so far.
Thank you. Jan?
I want to make sure I understand. So C is Holland's Group's property, and then where the body shop is.
Guzman.
Yeah.
Clear pipe and supply.
Truckee.
It goes all the way over to the thrift store.
Yes, includes
Yeah,
the thrift
it
store.
includes the thrift store.
Okay. And then, so what do I think about C? Fine.
Fine. Fine, which way fine?
Lisa, from previous sort of overarching.
There's not much missing.
I just would highlight, there, it's listed here under, number 3 and number 5. Under C, that there's some, again, you know, depending on how things all work out, there are some potentials for open space and natural resource protection areas. And those two things get highlighted a lot when talking about this area. So I think I'm good with what's here, C, generally speaking, and I'm reflecting that often the 3 and 5 elements and maybe the 6th element get talked about a lot, generally with the public.
I'd want everyone, so there's a number 4 on here, a plaza overlook. I just think everybody should be aware, like, do you still think there's opportunity for a plaza overlook there? Like, is that a good use there, or
Public space.
or some public
Public
space?
space.
Yeah.
As a property owner, I have an opinion.
Good. I can't wait to hear it, but we'll, yeah. Good. I looked right at you when I asked the question.
So Steph, are you looking
Steph?
at the page?
It's clear, it's this one.
I can back. I can go for C.
Yeah.
I agree about the hotel with Lindsay. That would be a no-starter for me in what I've heard
So
from the
not having a
community.
hotel, yeah.
But that doesn't mean we shouldn't get input on it. Also, I think what we've heard from the community is the caution with access to river, and yet everyone wants access to river, and I don't see that on C. So I'd like for us to, with every single parcel, talk about what are opportunities for access to the river.
Pam, do you know what access means, or just broadly access? It
Just
could be
broadly
okay.
access. I mean, however we would end up defining that, Jen. But on every single one of our input summaries, it's a major issue, and I think if we don't have it. And then I'd be very interested in hearing Jan's opinion as the property owner.
We can hear from others too.
Steph, are you ready? Steph, we'll go back to Steph.
We're talking about C?
Yes.
Yeah, I can concur with most input here. The little plaza area, I'm not too sure. We should look at the effect on the river there for
yes,
access. It can have a major effect on the habitat and the environment there, so that needs to be looked at. But otherwise, I'm fine.
Corey?
I like the potential pedestrian bridge. I think that connecting that to the open space on the other side would definitely create a nice area where that, in combination with all the protection that I see put together on side 5, those are the aspects that I like the most.
I mean, there's a lot included in there, so I'm fine with it.
I need a little definition between C1, C3, and C2. It looks like there's some property there that maybe doesn't belong to somebody. It's not inside the black blocks, if you will. It goes all the way to West River
Oh.
Street,
Where that bridge, where the arrows are?
correct?
I don't know.
So the subject,
that-
the sub pieces of C1, C2, and C3,
So that's-
you refer back to some of the text in the document, so those
Okay.
are additional information there that's in the packet that essentially reflects the bullet points that are under the bigs. 1 in a square, 2 in a square, 3 in a square, 4 in a square, there's just additional description as part of those.
So, the pedestrian bridge, obviously, it's gonna have to go on Jan Holland's property unless, his investors, because I'm sure Edgar's not gonna allow a pedestrian bridge on his property. And that looks like where C2 is. So, then again, we're asking the same thing, making a decision on private property. What we'd like to see, Jan's trying to put in some housing there, maybe fast tracking what he's trying to do, what the town wants, giving him the opportunity in some sort of fashion to put some housing in. And what he has going on there is probably keeping him a little bit solvent, is the rent he gets paid from the people who are doing industrial work. But I don't know if that's in his vision or not, or the town's vision or not, but those are very important people that are there that have no place to go. 0 place to go. And luckily, Jan's letting them stay. Because at any given time, he can tell them, is or out. So,
So comments on the uses that are identified here?
I'm thinking that, I don't, then you got, I don't know what the idea is with Jack Guzman's property, but I'm sure his heels are dug in too. I don't think there's gonna be any restaurants in there, but, I think it's up to the property owner.
Anything else before we move on?
I have 2 things. One, while I like the idea of the pedestrian bridge, one of the things that was brought up that we haven't really touched on tonight was viewscape and not losing the viewscape of the river, which we just put another pedestrian bridge right down from this, so I think that bridge wasn't there, well, until like 2 weeks ago. So seeing what that does to our viewscape and then maybe thinking about that. And then there's a little box there that says evidence of early historic uses may survive in this area and should be addressed in improvement plans. And having a master's degree in archaeology, I just wanted to point that out. So something to think about, as we think about redevelopment, are we going to find things that need to be celebrated and protected, and what that does to this plan? So just throw that out there. And the hotel is interesting also. I have thoughts on the hotel, but not for right now. That's it.
Brian?
I think there's already like it's already been said, there's kind of a large mix of different uses here, and I agree with Jessica on the historic preservation or any evidence there, making sure that's preserved.
To me, the thought of a hotel means something that's pretty tall, and to me, that would absolutely be a no-brainer, that anything tall there. And I think it flies against our prioritizing housing, not for tourists that come up for a day or 2, but for people who are trying to work here. So I think the idea of a hotel there doesn't make a lot of sense, given what we're about. I also spoke to the bridge idea before. There's going to be another bridge up by the confluence of Donner Creek.
I think it's actually planned for further on 89, actually, so,
Placer County.
So Placer
But there is
County.
gonna be,
There
There
is
will
a
be one.
will be a
right,
bridge.
move on,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
It'll be right in that area. And again, I worry about those new sheds. You've got a new one and another new one, which is only less than a mile up the street. So to put another one in, it's like, lost bridges. I understand the reasoning, but
You already have your bridge right across your street, right?
I got bridges all over.
So you don't want a bridge in our
You're very
neighborhood.
walkable.
You could have mine.
You can walk.
You can have my
I'll take
bridge.
yours any day.
Jan?
Yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, I think we were talking about bridges. You know, I think when you're driving down West River Street and East River Street, you're like, wow, there's a lot of bridges. There's actually 2 pedestrian bridges in like 3 miles. You know, imagine walking that. And so if you envision people living here, you should also envision how they should access nature, right? Because there's not much nature to access other than the river itself right there. And if we also want people that are working, like Wes Byer, who walks his dog on private property every day, how great would it be if Wes and Tanya Byer could walk across and then have access to many, many acres of wild plants. So I'm a huge, like, a lot of this stuff, I'm like, yeah, whatever. But the bridge to me is not, you know, it's not really a negotiable thing. If you want this to be a mixed-use neighborhood, give those people access to nature. And to be able to walk and ride their bikes and things like that. So, but the bridge itself actually, you know, and I want to point out that C2 should probably be about the same height as C3 because there's actually 2 or 3 parcels there that have an amazing opportunity for redevelopment, and it happens to include 1 or 2 parcels that are really used for propane storage. So,
Potential to expand, to change the
yeah, I would
boundary.
extend that.
Yeah, I don't know why it's drawn.
So
like that.
I would make it a little bit bigger. And then in terms of like, you know,
Yeah, this is.
the public plaza, I think that the public plaza idea makes more sense at the bottom corner, not in the middle of a private parcel, right? So if you wanted to, like, I would love to talk to the town of Truckee or the Parks and Rec District about, hey, that red circle right there, why don't we put that right next to West River Street? Let's figure out how to screen West River Street, or maybe West River Street moves a little bit, and then and let's take some fill out, and all of a sudden we've got the most amazing park on all of the river. But yeah, I mean, right in the middle of a parcel that I've convinced 20 investors to invest into, I don't know about that. And then I think there's another opportunity, you know, with engagement with property owners to put a park somewhere in an expanded C2, right? So I guess it's the 2. But that's River Park Place. We should have a park. We should have a bridge connection to the other side. You know, I don't think a lot of that. I mean, the only thing that's being used on that side of the river right now is a pet lodge or a vet clinic, right?
Vet clinic, yeah.
So I think there's a real opportunity there.
Jeff?
I think C is, generally speaking, I think lots of good words shared this evening. I think it's generally there's opportunities there.
Yeah, me, I'd like it.
In the
I'd
interest
like-
of time, I mean, we're
Yeah,
supposed to be done 4 minutes ago,
yeah,
so.
and I would just like to have more housing in this overall mixed use. It seems a little more commercial than I kind of think, so I need more housing.
Yeah, housing.
Housing. I think I know. Okay, so with all of those said, on those 2 parcels, I'd like to open for public comment. Please, Carla.
I changed my mind.
I really want to know what you were going to say. I still want to hear it.
I'll save it for another day.
Go
Let's
ahead.
say something real quick.
Thank you.
My name's Rob Cavallo, also an owner of Tahoe Sports Hub in 10095 West River Street. When we're thinking about opportunities for new business, we need to stop and think about businesses that already exist and how creating opportunities for new business might just be opening a revolving door of businesses. You know, you put 3 extra coffee shops on West River Street, maybe one of the ones that already exists goes out of business. Kind of the same with, you know, Tahoe Sports Hub. If we got more bike shops and more river shops, and we don't have the opportunity to be a part of those, you know, then our summer vitality goes away. So, just a thought for everybody when we're talking about what businesses and how many businesses are going in. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Seeing none? Oh,
Sorry, Joan.
Yeah.
Should I go?
Yeah, you should, because there's people at home who want to hear you too.
I'm Kristen Crone, I'm a Riverside Drive resident. This could be redundant, but, I'm wondering if the lumberyard is a feasible location for some of the, is that in consideration for relocation? Is there any interest, does that come into play with this project? Is
About
that
the rail yard?
the old young lumberyard, what do you call that now? The holiday project?
Yeah, rail yard.
So that is not within our scope.
Okay.
So we're not charged with looking
Okay.
beyond really the
So even if it
corridor.
was a feasible space, it's not in, it'll never come in the scope of this.
Well, we are looking for receiver sites potential, so from that sense, but the rail yard area
Right.
is already in the master plan that already
Okay.
has
Okay.
housing designated and other uses.
Okay, so in this lifetime, that may happen. Correct.
So what she's asking, I believe, is the rail yard a potential receiver site for businesses that are on West River and East River Street?
Probably depends on the business.
It wouldn't be a industrial receiver site, because there's nothing down there in zone industrial.
Okay, that was,
Anymore.
thank you, Travis. Yeah. When Jan was talking about parks, and I was wondering if you were going to define access to river and, or define what that means so that we're all talking the same language. Can you also, for the future meetings, define what a park means? Because I think there was, for me, when I started coming to these meetings, some misunderstanding of what park entails. Because it could be, is it a high density commercial property? Is it open space? What is park?
I think that's a good point.
And that's it. Thank you very much for these meetings.
Anyone else? I know you guys are slow to respond, so. Great, thank you. I will close public comment. Oh, we have to have a discussion about when we're gonna meet in July, because it is on July, what's the, 2nd. So the next meeting is July 2nd, Tuesday. Is that problematic for anybody? Raise your hand if it's problematic.
It might just.
If it is problematic, it does not work for you.
If it does not work for you.
I don't know from day to day.
So it looks like we would have quorum.
It looks like we would have.
Yeah.
Jeff had his hand.
Jeff, Jan, Jessica, Brian, and
July 2nd.
It's a Tuesday.
July 2nd.
I'm
Would
gonna
it be,
assume.
is it,
4th of July weekend.
It's July 6th.
No, the 2nd.
is the following Tuesday, oh, that's council.
That's good.
So,
We don't
But you
have a
have-
council meeting that week.
you don't meet in July, so.
Hey, things have changed,
I
right?
know. Would the following Tuesday, so the 9th.
Does not work for us.
Okay. There's always something.
I know.
Is there?
The 16th is planning commission.
Monday doesn't,
And so Monday, July 8th, or Monday, July 15th could potentially work.
Could work. Or another option is we could
not do the July meeting and do the August meeting, have our action team meeting. And then in lieu,
I
the
think
design
because
workshop
it's
team would do individual interviews with each of the group members.
We need to keep going.
Well, that would be the piece of keeping going, is that
No,
we
I
would
would rather meet and continue these discussions myself. What, I don't know what everybody else would like to do.
So I think we have options on the table of the 8th
And
and the
the
15th.
room is not available,
Okay.
so 15th.
Can we go?
We can go to.
It's gonna be tight.
Yes.
I agree. On the left.
It's not interesting.
Oh.
Good point.
It's not interesting.
How about the 15th? Who can make the 15th? Let's just see. You can make it.
It's my birthday.
The 9th is my birthday, so when you were, I was like, I'll be here, but only if you have cupcakes.
I know, we get cupcakes.
Okay, we will have cupcakes.
Good morning, Truckee. Can we push back your setup of the room on the 15th?
If everyone does it with me at the end.
Sure. That'll be your birthday.
Mine's the week before, it'll be Jones' birthday.
July 15th, and we'll have a birthday celebration.
No.
July 15th.
Really.
They'll send a calendar.
Yeah, I'll just need some help.
Yep.
Okay.
I've attended a council meeting on my birthday.
Okay.
July 15th. All good. Okay, so we are adjourned.
We need
Unless
public
you're-
comment on that item.
Oh, on the meeting? No.
She almost did
Not
it.
gonna do it, not gonna do it. Hillary, we're good. Okay, so we will adjourn till July 15th, 5:15, right here. Thank you guys all. Thank you, public, for coming. This is, a very nice public turnout.